This is Anthony Scott Hobbs of Citizen Georgia, here live at the Big Shanty Festival in downtown Kennesaw, where all day we've been interviewing and talking to these folks that are running for public office and asking the questions that need to be asked. We've actually got former Congressman Bob Barr with us right now. Want to welcome you to the show, Bob.
Anthony, it's great to be here. Are we live? Can you all hear okay? Oh, it's great to be here. It's great to be with you, a friend of many, many years here in Kennesaw at the Big Shanty Festival, which is always, every spring, one of the real highlights of the spring season. Not just because it gives all of us who are running for office an opportunity to meet with so many people, but it's just a wonderful way to get out and about in the community and see a lot of our small businesses and community leaders.
You know, Bob, I've been following your writings for some time over the last few years. And what I love about some of your writings is the fact that you stay attuned on some of the major issues out there today. Let's just start off, I guess, with just a real softball of a question. Why are you running? Why should folks vote for you?
I'm running for the same reason that folks should vote for me, and that is we desperately need, even now, Anthony, more than back in 1994 when I was elected to the House of Representatives, we need people with the knowledge and the backbone and the real perseverance to shrink the size, the scope, the cost, and the power of the federal government. You know, as bad as it was back in 1994 when I was part of that Republican sweep into the House of Representatives, in which we gained the majority for the first time in 40 years, the budget deficit back then was under $5 trillion. Now, at least the visible part of it is pushing $18 trillion. Our nation cannot sustain that. We need to start shrinking that. And I want to put my experience that I've used before to balance the budget, to cut taxes, to protect our Second Amendment rights, to work once again for the people of the 11th District.
Here's a question, and I love the fact that in 1998 you led the charge for the impeachment hearings on Bill Clinton, okay? Let me ask you a question. Why is there absolutely no one in Congress today, obviously Republicans, that is trying to lead the charge when it comes to some of the antics of President Obama?
Well, it's interesting that you should bring up the 1998 impeachment of Clinton, because I really was the very first one in the entire House back in 1997 to recognize that we had a president who was out of control, who was violating the law and violating his oath of office, Bill Clinton. And even back in those days, Anthony, you may remember this, when I first started that process of what we call an inquiry of impeachment, which is the first step toward impeachment hearings and so forth, I was really one of the very, very few, the very first inquiry of impeachment that I filed in the U.S. House in November of 1997. The most I was able to get was I think 17 other Republicans to sign on. We had a dozen and a half at the time. Yet within 13 months later, he was impeached. It simply takes somebody to provide that spark of leadership so that others then will feel comfortable coming on board.
Backbone.
We don't have that spark right now. I intend to provide it.
Biggest word that I heard you say earlier was backbone. Having the backbone to be able to get out there and do the things that need to be done.
Yes, sir. Backbone coupled with the experience to know how to use the constitutional provisions that we have, how to use the tools that are already there. It isn't that we need new tools. There are plenty of laws. There are adequate provisions in the Constitution to get our government back to where it ought to be. We just need people up there with the will and the knowledge to know how to use those tools.
You know, for those of you listening, this office, this 11th Congressional District that Congressman Barr is running for, really encompasses the counties of Cherokee and Bartow and a part of Cobb going on down into Buckhead. What do you feel are your three, let me ask you this, what are the three main issues that you perceive as the biggest issues for the voters of the 11th District today?
There, of course, are so many, it's hard to really put your finger on a couple, but a couple of things, Anthony, that I hear over and over and over again as I travel across those four counties that comprise the 11th District. First and foremost is get rid of Obamacare. It is the worst piece of legislation passed, I think, in the history of our country. 2,405 pages of mandate after mandate after mandate. We need to start trimming it back so that we can then regain the Senate, which I think we will this fall, and then recapture the White House in 2016 so that we can repeal it in the entire thing. But in the meantime, we need to start stanching the damage that is done. So that's number one. Number two, get rid of stifling federal regulations such as the Dodd-Frank Act and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to name just two, that are stifling small businesses such as we see here in Kennesaw and throughout the district. Number three would be to do something to restore America's prestige and military diplomatic capabilities in the world, which are at the lowest ebb since Jimmy Carter. That's how bad this president is. He makes Jimmy Carter look like a warlord.
Jimmy Carter is a warlord. Let's get things a little more spicy. I love it. When it comes to Obamacare, really the options on the table now, obviously we've got to capture the Senate. Obviously we've got to get the White House. What can really be done there when it comes to that as a piece of legislation today?
A lot of people forget, Anthony, and as I know you don't, they forget that the single most powerful tool in the Congress and actually in the entire government is the power of the purse strings. When Bill Clinton was president, once we gained the majority in the House under Tom DeLay, Newt Gingrich, and Dick Armey, not a single spending bill that Bill Clinton sent up to the Congress was passed. We held the line and we forced him to come to the negotiating table, which eventually gave us the Balanced Budget Act of 1997 with a Democrat liberal president. We need to once again use the power of the purse strings to start dismantling Obamacare. It can be done if we do it wisely, if we focus like a laser on specific provisions of Obamacare that this president wants, and we attach those restrictions to spending bills that he has to have.
Can we expect then, Congressman Barr, can we expect then, if you're elected to this office, that in going there, that you'll help lead the charge, you'll show that you have the backbone to be able to say, hey, look, when it comes to those purse strings, we need to stop funding some of these things and really push the president into a corner to be able to do something. Are you saying that you're going to be able to do that?
Absolutely, and people in the 11th District know that I mean what I say because I've been there and I've done it. I was part of the team that created a balanced budget in 1997. Part of the team that repealed the Clinton gun ban in the House of Representatives. I've been there, I've done it. They're not sending a novice, they're not sending a neophyte to the Congress at this critical time when they elect Bob Barr.
You know, I was reading over the last couple days this legislation that I think Jim Moran out of Virginia had introduced, saying that congressmen making $174,000 a year needed to be paid more money because they haven't had a raise in the last 5 years. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that $174,000 is enough?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that a lot of the folks up there even earn that in terms of the work product that we see out of them. No, it indicates just how out of touch, Anthony, a lot of these folks are. A lot of the Democrats and even some Republicans fall into that same category. They need to come down here to Kennesaw. They need to come down to Ackworth and Canton and Woodstock and Cartersville and talk with people who aren't making near that much money, who are struggling in their small businesses and their families. They need to get out into the real world and recognize that it is that sort of elitist attitude that is creating the tremendous credibility gap between people in the real world and the Congress.
You know, President Obama basically has stated that he's going to run this country based off of a pen and a phone and being able to use executive order to be able to do things. What are we seeing in Washington today when it comes to is it a failure of leadership when it comes to the Republican side? What's your gut say in reference to what's happening up there as an environment?
It's a couple of things, Anthony. First and foremost, we have an imperial president. We have a president who believes that simply because he was elected president, he can do whatever he wants simply because he believes as president it's in the best interest of the country. Our system of government was set up so that there are three co-equal branches of government. Congress needs to remind itself that it is a co-equal branch of government and does not have to kowtow to the president or to the courts. It has an independent responsibility. The Congress of the United States of America can and should stop these executive orders that the president is using to violate U.S. laws. They ought to be taking him to court and suing him to stop him. But again, the most important power that the Congress has is they can use the power of the purse strings to stop him from being able to implement any action that he takes, some of these unlawful executive orders.
We're going to have to take a short break, but we're going to come back here in just a couple minutes with former Congressman Bob Barr, who is looking to ask you for your vote for the 11th Congressional District. This is Anthony Scott Hobbs with Citizen Georgia, coming back to you live from the Big Shanty Festival in downtown Kennesaw.